This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Trump, the tariffs, and what could be a grim trade war.
We're going to have to go through a little tough love, maybe.
I'm Rich Johnson.
Elon Musk may be headed for a Washington exit.
So at some point he's going to be going back.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Supreme Court hears South Carolina's bid to defund Planned Parenthood. I'm Sue Aller.
A potential challenger for Texas's senior senator.
I'm talking to a lot of people in Texas over the next couple months.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, sweeping tariffs announced by President Trump, investors trying to game out what stocks to buy and sell. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A ruling from the Michigan Supreme Court says police can't search cars based solely on the smell of marijuana. I'm Ed Donahue.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump has made good on a campaign promise and has signed executive orders imposing big tariffs on goods imported from almost every country in the world. Correspondent Rich Johnson reports those countries and some in Congress are not happy with the new policy.
The applause at the White House as President Trump signed the orders that increase tariffs on nearly everything coming into the U.S. from nearly every place in the world.
Effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
That hike's in addition to the general tariff increases that range from 10% on the UK to 34% on China. But that's on top of the 20% already in place, for a total tariff of 54% on all goods from China.
President Xi understood. He said, look, I understand, and the other countries, and they all understand. We're going to have to go through a little tough love, maybe, but they all understand.
Understanding or not, the world is already responding.
We have the largest single market in the world. We have the strength to negotiate. We have the power to push back.
The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Back in Washington, the president's getting praise from most Republicans, like South Carolina Representative Russell Fry, trying to see the high road.
That's an invitation that the president wants a deal. He wants to work. He wants to do business.
Fry's comment courtesy of ABC. House Speaker Mike Johnson said he thinks the new tariff policy will cause the impacted countries to lower their tariffs on U.S. products. But Arizona Senator, Democrat Mark Kelly, says most of us will quickly feel the pain thanks to the president.
Put tariffs on many of the products and goods and things that families rely on. And it's going to make costs go up. And it's a mistake to be doing this.
In a quick rebuke of President Trump, the Senate approved a resolution to block the tariffs. It passed with the help of 4 Republicans, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Rand Paul.
I think they're a terrible idea economically and will lead to higher prices. Tariffs are simply taxes. Republicans used to be, and conservatives in particular, used to be against new taxes.
The resolution has no chance of passing the House or being signed by the president. In the first hours after the announcement, the world's financial markets are already taking the move badly. The Dow Futures Index has tumbled by as much as 2%. Japan's Nikkei average lost 4% of its value shortly after trading opened. And as we await the opening of the U.S. financial markets, some warnings. Fitch Ratings calls the tariffs a game changer for the global economy. And the corporate CEO group known as the Business Roundtable warns the new tariffs run the risk of causing major harm that could be made worse once other countries retaliate with higher tariffs on U.S. goods. I'm Rich Johnson.
A report from Politico says that President Trump has told his inner circle that Elon Musk will be stepping back from his work with the Department of Government Efficiency soon. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the move comes as the face of DOGE's government employee status expires in about a month.
Elon Musk may be headed for a Washington exit. DOGE may soon be done. Musk has suggested recently he'll be finished with his cost-cutting work in the near future. And earlier this week,
he's got a big company to run, and so at some point he's going to be going back.
The president's remarks came before Wisconsin's voters rejected Musk's backing of a state Supreme Court nominee, and his once high-flying Tesla reported a 13% first-quarter sales drop.
Elon's amazing. He's never asked me for a favor in business whatsoever. I'm actually a little surprised by it. I might do it, I might not do it. I do what's right, and he'd want me to do what's right. No, he's a patriot.
Musk was hired as a special government employee. That means he can only work 130 days in a 365-day period. May 30th will be 130 days since the president's inauguration. DOGE itself was intended to operate until July 2026. Asked if it would continue without Musk, the president said only that cabinet officials may keep some of his people.
You know, at a certain point, I think it will end.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Coming up on America in the Morning, blocking Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood clinics. After these messages. America in the Morning continues with an update on damaging severe weather. It looks like round 2 today for some. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
After intense thunderstorms caused several injuries due to numerous tornadoes and widespread damage from wind and hail from the Arklatex region into the Ohio Valley and the interior Northeast on Wednesday, today's severe weather threat unfortunately covers some of the exact same areas, as storms from the Dallas area northeastward to perhaps New York City may be able to produce hail, strong wind gusts, and some tornadoes once again through tonight. The second of what could be 4 straight days of severe weather for some will continue to ramp up the flooding threat, with the continued risk for potent thunderstorms making cleanup efforts rather difficult in some spots where the damage is already extensive, as a large area of at least 2 to 4 inches of total rain extends from Dallas to western Pennsylvania and Maryland through Saturday night. To the north and east of the main risk area for severe thunderstorms, the northern end of the very same disturbance will produce areas of rain and drizzle across New England and New York State, as a generally wet pattern sets in that will result in clouds much of the time for many through the weekend. With snow ending over the Great Lakes, much drier air arrives through the day, promoting a quiet Thursday for the northern plains and the upper Midwest as well under high pressure. Most of the southeast also looks dry, with some showers most likely from the western Carolinas into northeastern Georgia. Elsewhere, rain and snow showers shift even farther into the interior west, leaving a general 1 to 3 inches of snow through the day today from the Wasatch Range of Utah into the Colorado Rockies and through the northeastern part of the state, including the Denver metropolitan area, as rain showers also continue for a time over southern California, mainly along the coastline, but also extending a bit inland. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Listen on your preferred platform. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The U.S. Supreme Court appears divided over whether a state can block Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood clinics. Sue Aller reports on the case being brought by South Carolina as part of a larger fight over abortion access.
The Supreme Court is currently hearing a case involving South Carolina's attempt to defund Planned Parenthood by excluding it from the state's Medicaid program. The legal debate centers on whether Medicaid beneficiaries have the right to choose their healthcare provider and sue if their preferred provider is removed. South Carolina argues that Medicaid law does not grant such a right, while Planned Parenthood and its supporters contend that patients should be able to enforce their choice of provider under federal law. The Supreme Court appears divided. Conservative justices seem sympathetic to the state's argument, while liberal justices emphasize that Medicaid law grants patients the right to choose any qualified provider. This case could have broader implications for Medicaid patients nationwide, as it could set a precedent for states to restrict funding for providers based on political grounds. A decision is expected later this year. I'm Sue Aller.
Speculation is growing over a primary challenger against Texas GOP senior senator. Correspondent Clayton Neville has a closer look.
Senator John Cornyn is running for re-election. It's not clear, though, who his Republican primary challenger will be just yet, but the idea of embattled Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has been floated. He's even addressed the speculation. This was Paxton in late December of last year.
We are looking at that. I'm talking to a lot of people in Texas over the next couple months. Ask me that question in a couple of months, and I'll have a different answer.
He even pulled the crowd.
Well, who would want me to run?
This week, Paxton told the New York Times he thinks there's a lot to be done at the federal level. He stopped short of announcing a run, but did say that President Trump could use the help of a senator who, quote, actually is supportive and not critical. Paxton teased the potential of a Trump endorsement and said whether he runs or not is contingent on if he can get about $20 million in campaign contributions. Paxton continues to hold office in Texas despite securities fraud charges against him and an impeachment trial in which he was acquitted. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, attractive stocks in the new tariff era after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Lots to cover in business this morning with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning with modest gains for stocks yesterday. Those were notched before President Trump announced sweeping tariffs after the markets closed. The markets tanked in after-hours trading after the president's speech. Gold set its 19th record-high close of the year yesterday. Investors are pouring money in there as a hedge against uncertainty. President Trump announcing sweeping tariffs on goods from 60 countries at varied rates, 20% on items coming in from the European Union, 24% on items from Japan, and many more, plus reciprocal tariffs of at least 10%.
I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that.
The president also announced that interest on car loans will be tax deductible for those who buy American-made vehicles.
For the cars, we're asking for an interest deduction on a loan. So if the car's not built in America, you don't get the interest rate deduction. But if you build the car in America, if you buy a car, if it's built in America, then you get an interest rate deduction, tax deduction.
CNBC Mad Money host Jim Cramer has been talking to business leaders about the president's tariff agenda.
I hear people say that it's really morphed into we're going to raise a lot of money and you're going to get a tax cut.
Many investors are hoping some of the tariffs could be negotiated down, but some of the damage is already done.
The ramifications are very strong. I mean, we already see a big decline in travel by foreigners into the United States. I mean, that hits the service sector. There may be some boycotts of U.S. goods. And, of course, the big wild card, as we all know, is the potential retaliation.
Wharton professor Jeremy Siegel on CNBC. Tesla shares popped higher yesterday on reports that Elon Musk will soon be leaving the government and DOGE. Amazon shares popped yesterday on reports it's trying to buy TikTok, which the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, hasn't said is for sale. But by U.S. law, TikTok has to be sold or banned. And here come higher prices at the pump. AAA says the national average is now $3.23 for a gallon of regular gas, up 13 cents in the past month as summer blends hit gas stations. On today's watch list, investors will be going through the tariff announcement with a fine-tooth comb. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week ahead of tomorrow morning's big government March jobs report. Earnings are coming from ConAgra and potato supplier Lamb Weston.
Thank you, Jessica. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Joint custody, Michigan's new marijuana law. When America in the Morning returns after these messages. An early spring tornado outbreak has struck areas in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, where authorities report a number of power outages and homes were destroyed. More than 1.4 million people in parts of 6 states, from Arkansas to Illinois, are under flash flood warnings from what forecasters called generational flooding from severe storms. Governors in Arkansas and Kentucky declared states of emergency. More than a foot of rain is expected to fall between Texas and Ohio through Sunday. Tornado watches and warnings are expected to be issued along the path of that same swath today. Shifting gears, the odor of marijuana does not present probable cause for search and seizure, at least according to a new court decision from the state of Michigan. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
A ruling from the Michigan Supreme Court says police can't search cars based solely on the smell of marijuana. The court threw out gun charges against a man whose car was searched in Detroit in 2020 when the odor of marijuana was detected. In 2018, Michigan voters legalized the possession and use of a small amount of marijuana by anyone 21 or older, though it cannot be used inside a vehicle. Writing for the majority, Justice Megan Kavanaugh wrote, "The smell of marijuana no longer constitutes probable cause. It might just as likely be the person is in possession of a legal amount, recently used marijuana legally, or was simply in the presence of someone else who used marijuana." The Illinois Supreme Court made a similar ruling last September. That state legalized the possession of marijuana in 2019. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Thursday, April 3rd, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
President Trump has laid out sweeping new tariffs on dozens of nations. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump gives his approval on a budget blueprint in Congress. I'm Clayton Neville.
A judge dismisses New York City Mayor Eric Adams' corruption case. Julie Walker, New York.
A closer look at 2 states' Tuesday election results. Disturbing details into the background of a school shooter, a shipping and streaming giant making a bid to buy TikTok, and tributes pour in after the passing of a Hollywood screen legend.
A Quentin Tarantino film is getting an unexpected sequel. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Even though it's early April, we still have snow in the national forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A sprawling disturbance centered right over the Four Corners region today will bring enough energy to the atmosphere to support an expanding area of accumulating snow today from Utah's Wasatch Range into and across the Colorado Rockies through the Colorado Springs and Denver areas, also including most of Colorado near and to the north of I-70, as well as points northward along the I-25 corridor into Cheyenne, Wyoming. Expect a general 1 to 3 inches of snow throughout this region, with locally higher amounts leading to reduced visibility within any particularly steady and heavy bursts of snow, with numerous showers of rain and snow also spreading across the Intermountain West as most of the West Coast outside of Southern California dries out. Another major story today is the continued risk for severe weather from the southern plains into portions of the eastern U.S., as a largely stalled pattern will once again lead to the development of powerful thunderstorms capable of damaging wind gusts, hail, and tornadoes from northeastern Texas through the Ohio Valley. While the magnitude and aerial coverage of severe storms may not turn out to be quite as high as during yesterday's widespread severe outbreak, the threat will actually extend farther to the east through the night, eventually reaching New Jersey and parts of Long Island. This nearly stationary pattern with extremely potent thunderstorms feeding off exceptional moisture in place may result in rainfall of 12 to 18 inches from northeastern Arkansas to parts of Indiana and Kentucky near the Ohio River, creating historic flooding potential. Otherwise, it's a wet Thursday for the rest of the Northeast and New England, especially early, with drier conditions for the upper Midwest and northern Great Lakes. In San Francisco, expect sun and a high of 62. For St. Louis, watch for some afternoon rain with a high of 61. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Futures on Wall Street plunge following President Trump's announcement of new and higher than expected global tariffs. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the surcharge, some reaching as high as 10 to 49% on U.S. trade partners, could lead to higher prices for American consumers as Washington attempts to narrow the nation's trade gap.
President Trump has laid out sweeping new tariffs on dozens of nations, threatening to upend much of the global economy.
Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore.
The president says for too long.
For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike.
And now it's fighting back.
We will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%.
Showing a chart with import taxes ranging from 34% on China to 20% on the European Union.
I call this kind reciprocal. This is not full reciprocal. This is kind reciprocal.
The numbers are higher than many economists anticipated.
My answer is very simple. If they complain, if you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America.
And while the administration says the tariffs will raise hundreds of billions in revenue a year, they also risk a sudden economic slowdown, with prices in turn rising for American consumers.
Trump's done a lot of bad things. This is way up there.
Top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer says the tariffs will further drive down consumer confidence.
But is Donald Trump worried? Not even a little bit. In fact, he said the other day he couldn't care less if prices go up. You hear that, America? Life is about to become far more expensive. And Donald Trump, the billionaire who promised to bring down inflation on day one, says he could not care less if you have to pay more.
Most outside analysis predicts higher inflation and slower growth as a result.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. We're going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump says Congress is getting closer to a budget blueprint that meets his approval. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports the measure would allow boosts for military spending and more money to fight immigration enforcement.
The plan got President Trump's verbal approval this week.
One bill is going to straighten out our country for many, many years to come. And we said, let's just do it and let's get it done. And some guys will love it and some guys will like it a little bit less because they're not getting what they were exactly looking for, but they're getting a lot. They'll never, if we get this done, it'll be the most incredible bill ever passed in the history of our Congress.
The president encouraged Republican lawmakers to pass the bill that would pave the way for $1.5 trillion in new tax cuts and make President Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent.
But we're going to get us closer to the debt extension. We have to get the debt extension passed, and I know you're going to be able to do that, Mike, and it's very important that you do that. And all of the other things that the Senate budget plan gives us, along with working, because I know they're working together, John and Mike, and the two bills are going very well together. We need to get our shared priorities done, including certain permanent tax cuts. We want the tax cuts to be permanent, spending cuts, energy and historic investments in defense, border, and so much more.
Senate Republicans using the budget reconciliation process to evade the 60-vote hurdle in the chamber, where they hold a 53-47 majority. The president said that Republican leaders in the House and the Senate are working together and making progress.
They've been working tirelessly on taking the next step to pass the plan for our one big, beautiful bill. I'd like to name it that if you can. One big, I made that statement about 6 months ago, and everybody calls it one big, beautiful bill. And it will be that. It'll have everything, the big tax cuts and every incentive there is.
The GOP budget resolution in the Senate includes a $5 trillion debt limit increase and is a revised version of a previous plan that did not include taxes. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said in a statement that it's time for the Senate to move forward with the budget resolution in order, he said, to advance the Republican agenda in Congress. I'm Clayton Neville.
The results have been in for some time now on Tuesday's elections, but despite Democrats spending more in Florida, the two Donald Trump-backed Republicans won special elections for the House. Now, in Wisconsin, the most money ever spent on a court election, which included big checks from Elon Musk, saw the liberal justice win. Correspondent Ben Thomas has a recap, audio courtesy of WKRG TV.
Republicans Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine, as expected, won special elections in two Florida congressional districts. Fine for a seat vacated by Mike Waltz when he was tapped to become President Trump's national security advisor. Patronis to replace Matt Gaetz, who Trump chose for attorney general but withdrew amid allegations of sexual misconduct.
CD1 is where the hopes and dreams of the Democratic Party come to die.
The wins bolster Republicans' margin in the House. It's now 220 to 213. However, Democrats did narrow the voter margins considerably from November in two of the most heavily Republican districts in the country. Still, President Trump celebrated the outcomes in an all-caps social media post, saying the Trump endorsement, as always, proved far greater than the Democrats' forces of evil.
All right, Wisconsin, we did it.
Wisconsin's Supreme Court will have a liberal majority for at least 3 more years.
Just moments ago, I received a phone call from Judge Brad Schimmel conceding the race.
Susan Crawford, a Dane County judge backed by Democrats who led legal fights to protect union power and abortion rights and to oppose voter ID laws, defeated Brad Schimmel, a former state attorney general endorsed by President Trump and backed by Elon Musk and groups he funded with more than $21 million.
Wisconsinites fended off an unprecedented attack on our democracy.
Something Crawford noted in remarks to supporters.
Justice does not have a price. Our courts are not for sale.
Crawford herself drew support from billionaire megadonor George Soros and other Democrats. She made this pledge.
I will be a fair, impartial, and common sense justice on the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Sound courtesy WKOW. I'm Ben Thomas.
New York Mayor off the hook, calls for the Social Security Commissioner to resign, and a new buyer for TikTok. Those stories and more after these messages. The corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been dismissed. Correspondent Julie Walker reports this comes as the mayor is planning a re-election campaign.
President Trump's Justice Department had made the request. However, the order is with prejudice, so the case can't be brought back, which was something the Trump team had been holding in reserve. Adams says he's grateful it's over.
This case should have never been brought. And I did nothing wrong.
But Judge Dale Ho said in his ruling, everything here smacks of a bargain. Dismissal of the indictment in exchange for immigration policy concerns. And he found it disturbing that public officials might get special treatment from prosecutors by complying with policy goals. At his news conference, Adams only answering a question about the upcoming mayoral election.
Re-election, and you know what? I'm going to win.
But he's got a lot of competition in that race. Julie Walker, New York.
The acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration is facing calls to resign after emails purport to show political payback. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Acting Commissioner for the Social Security Administration, Leland Dudek, issued an order March 5th that would have required new parents in Maine to register their newborns for a Social Security number at a federal office rather than at the hospital. The order was quickly rescinded, but newly discovered emails show that Dudek's order was political payback to Maine Governor Janet Mills, who got into a back and forth with President Donald Trump at a White House governor's meeting in February when she defied Trump's push to deny federal funding to the state over transgender athletes. She told Trump, "We'll see you in court." Democratic Congressman Jerry Connolly of Virginia, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, sent Dudek a letter calling for his immediate resignation. Dudek said last month that the move was not political retaliation, but that the Maine contract looked strange, so he canceled it. He says, "I made the wrong move there." Donna Warder, Washington.
Startling new details contained in a police report about a mass shooting by a former student at a small Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. Jennifer King reports.
A new report released by Nashville police says the shooter who attacked the Covenant School had been obsessively planning the attack for years and hiding mental health issues from doctors and family. 6 people were killed in the 2023 shooting, including 3 children. 28-year-old Audrey Hale left behind a series of notebooks, sketchbooks, and media files, but the investigation found no manifesto or specific racial or religious motivation. The investigation found Hale wanted to kill at least 40 people and hoped to inspire books and movies, choosing Covenant Elementary in part because of happy memories of attending there and thinking it would be an easy target. Hale planned an attack at Nashville's Criswell Middle School, but changed their mind over worries of being labeled a racist. Hale's parents and therapists had been concerned about their mental health, but assessments conducted at Vanderbilt concluded Hale wasn't suffering from psychosis. The report finds Hale knew enough about the system to fool caregivers and at one point considered killing their mother to stop the plan from being foiled. I'm Jennifer King.
Another twist in the TikTok saga. Amazon is the latest to throw in its hat to purchase the Chinese-owned app before the April 5th deadline. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
Barely making it in under the wire, a few more suitors are courting the ByteDance-owned TikTok application before the axe is dropped on April 5th. Another consortium led by Tim Stokely, founder of the OnlyFans site, has partnered with a cryptocurrency foundation to submit a late-stage plan to bid for TikTok as well. A Trump administration official also confirmed that Amazon had sent a letter to Vice President J.D. Vance and the Department of Commerce, but as of yet had declined to comment. Amazon has toyed with purchasing social media platforms for years and eventually bought Inspire, which was also a TikTok-like short video form, but shut that unit down earlier this year. And just for good measure, venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, led by Oracle, has also thrown in a bid to acquire the Chinese-owned TikTok. Bitcoin up about 2% at 88,000 and Ethereum at 1,920. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
Big weekend for college hoops with Thursday sports. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
The Dodgers improved to 8-0 with a 6-5 win over the Braves last night. Shohei Ohtani capping a comeback from down 5-0 with a walk-off homer in the 9th on his bobblehead night. Because of course he did. That's the best start ever for a defending World Series champion. Padres are 7-0 after beating the Guardians. Jackson Merrill with a 2-run tater after agreeing to a 9-year contract extension worth $135 million. Red Sox shut out the Orioles behind their new ace, Garrett Crochet. He went a career-high 8 innings after getting a 6-year, $170 million extension.
Very excited, about the long term, but also really focused on the present. It was nice to kind of have a day to let it breathe, so then I could really focus up for the start.
Rangers blanked the Reds 1-0 for a second straight day. Jack Leiter in the Bics with a 3-hitter. Cardinals crushed the Angels. Ivan Herrera hit 3 homers and drove in 6. NHL, the Hurricanes blew by the Capitals 5-1 to clinch a playoff spot. But while Washington struggles down the stretch, Alex Ovechkin continues to shine. His 39th goal of the season at age 39, number 892 for his career. He's 3 away from shattering Wayne Gretzky's record. Maple Leafs are also officially in the playoffs after shading the Panthers. NBA, the Thunder stay on a roll. 11 straight wins after a 119-103 victory over the Pistons. 33 points for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's right on his league-leading average. That's Thursday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, tributes continue to pour in for the passing of a Hollywood legend. After these messages. America in the Morning continues. Tributes pouring in from around the world following the passing of actor Val Kilmer, known for his roles in Top Gun, Tombstone, and Batman Forever. Correspondent Lizzie Knight reports.
The versatile actor played flying ace Iceman opposite Tom Cruise in Top Gun and Batman in Batman Forever. He was also acclaimed for his portrayal of singer Jim Morrison in the biopic The Doors. Kilmer's daughter says he died Tuesday in Los Angeles from pneumonia. He'd been diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014. Kilmer was born in Los Angeles and studied acting at the elite Juilliard School. He had his big break in the 1985 spy spoof Top Secret. Kilmer was sometimes regarded as a difficult presence on film sets, but said in his memoir that he always put the art first. Actors Josh Brolin, Matthew Modine and Josh Gad paid tribute to Kilmer on social media, along with filmmakers Francis Ford Coppola and Michael Mann. Brolin called him a smart, challenging, brave, uber-creative firecracker, while Francis Ford Coppola described him as a wonderful person to work with and a joy to know. Kilmer dated Cher and married and divorced actor Joanne Whalley. He's survived by their 2 children, Mercedes and Jack.
Well, it's certainly not the first time director Quentin Tarantino has gone once in a lifetime. Kevin Carr explains.
At CinemaCon this week, an April 1st announcement had people looking for a punchline. Quentin Tarantino's award-winning film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is getting a sequel, but it's going to have some changes.
That's your son?
No, it's my stunt double, Cliff Booth.
Brad Pitt will return as stuntman Cliff Booth, a role Tarantino was inspired to write by real-life figures in Hollywood, he told the California Film Institute in 2020.
See the 2 guys, the stunt guy and the actor, sitting there just shooting the breeze, both dressed identically. I saw the whole 9 years of their relationship.
However, Tarantino will not be directing. Instead, David Fincher will be at the helm of Tarantino's script. Tarantino spoke highly of his contemporary during an interview with Charlie Rose in 2009.
I mean, one of the most talented filmmakers of, my generation is David Fincher.
Pitt has worked with Fincher on 3 films in the past, including Seven.
Do you like what you do for a living? These things you see?
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
While everybody else was aging, I was getting younger.
And Fight Club.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
The other twist in this story is it will be made for Netflix on a reported $200 million budget. Netflix also distributed Fincher's Mank and The Killer. Fincher has famously leaned into digital filmmaking, while Tarantino is known for exclusively shooting on film and demanding theatrical exhibition. So there are still some details left to be hammered out. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.